Back now with the White House Chief of Staff, Rahm Emanuel. Mr. Emanuel, General Motors is now losing $100 million a day. They have already spent, we're told, 2/3 of what they have already received from the government, and we're hearing they want some more. They're now asking for another $16 billion. Is the president going to do that? Because the question I have is, how long does this go on?
As you know, the panel of experts we've assembled on the auto industry is working with GM and the others on their plan. The president's been very clear, though, what his priorities are. They have to have a viable business plan on a going forward basis, and it's going to require sacrifice from all the parties involved to do that. But here's the other thing I think that people should see in both GM as well as the others. They never invested in both alternative energy cars. They got dependent on big gas guzzlers. They have a healthcare cost structure that's outdated. And so an example, we talked earlier, Bob, about the fact that their healthcare system is affecting their business and their employees rather. And it's an example, in my view, of what the president's saying for this country. The day of reckoning, of making sure that we had a policy on energy independence, a policy that ensured that our healthcare costs were under control, and our ability to make sure that coverage was expanded to those who are uninsured as one way to also bring costs under control. That is the challenge we face as a country. To the GM specific, the president wants to see a business model that's on a going forward basis, is cognizant of the market, and that all the parties made the sacrifices necessary for that independence. The panel experts are now meeting to go over those plans and help them develop something or review what they're doing before any other decisions made.
So you're saying unless they change their ways drastically, unless they come up with a new model,
they kicked down, basically over the last 20 to 30 years, they had a strategy that has gotten them to, I think, a very unfortunate position, both on healthcare costs, new types of cars, weaning themselves off of basically gas guzzlers to energy efficient cars, and they're making those changes now when everybody said for the last 20 years. But it's a wake-up call, which is clear of what the president said on Tuesday night. It's a wake-up call to America. Do we want to have an energy policy that's different?
So they have to do something different.
They have to, but the plan. Wait a second. The plan is in front of the panel of experts, which is where it should be. I'm basically making sure that the restructuring is a viable restructuring plan.
Let's talk about the president's announcement that he is going to draw down the troops in Iraq, that he's going to leave 50,000 there in support roles. Before he made that talk, Nancy Pelosi, the Democratic leader in the House, said that 50,000 sounded like too much. Let's listen to just what she said. This was just before he spoke.
And I don't know what the justification is for 50,000, a presence of 50,000 troops in Iraq. I do think that there's a need for some. And I don't know that all of them have to be in country.
So there you have it. And that seems to be most of the criticism now coming from Democrats, not from Republicans. John McCain likes the way the president's doing this. The the Democrats seem to be saying, no, we need to get more troops out of there quicker.
Well, first of all, as you noted earlier in the question, the president ran on this policy, told the American people what he wanted to see. He said on day one, I'm going to have a meeting with my national security staff to begin the process to evaluate how we can come out in 16 months. That's what he did on day one. And about a month later, as you saw on Friday, he enunciated that policy because they came back, the entire apparatus of the national security apparatus for the president, on how to responsibly draw down our troops. By August of 2010, the combat mission will be over. We will have a residual force of somewhere between 35 and 50,000 troops, mainly dealing with training, protecting our diplomatic and civilians in Iraq, and some counterinsurgency. The president has been very clear that on a going forward basis, as we draw down, that the Iraqis must politically and on a security basis take ownership of their country. So there will be an intensified effort on the diplomatic and political side, which is why we sent Ambassador Hill there to work with our general and our entire.
Do you think the Democrats are going to go in the end, going to go along with this?
Well, first of all, there's the speaker spoke to her concern about 50,000. There have been other Democrats also, including, who have been supportive and understand where we are. The speaker has a right to question that size. The president said, "This is what I think is a responsible both plan for withdrawal and a responsible residual force," and has worked it through both with the commanders, the diplomatic corps, and the political apparatus to make sure we had a comprehensive view.
Let me go back to the budget for just one kind of cleanup question. You set a kind of a deadline for sometime in April to get most of this done. Am I correct?
Well, Congress is working on that session.
Is that realistic?
Well, yes, in this sense, Bob. I mean, there's a lot to compliment what this Congress has just pulled off. They passed a Ledbetter legislation on pay equity for women. They passed a children's health care bill that 11 million children of working parents are going to now finally get health care, who, because of no fault of their own, did not have health care, passed in a bipartisan way. And then 2 weeks later, they passed an impressive Economic Recovery Act that begins to invest in our country once again. And they did that in a month. The president laid out his budget, and this Congress is already beginning the work. And you'll see the President's OMB Director, Peter Orszag, up this week testifying. And the activity will go forward in both the House and the Senate. And we are confident, because this Congress is here understanding the extraordinary time we find ourselves in, to meet that challenge and meet the president's objective of setting through an economic program.
Let me also ask you quickly, we hear these horror stories coming out of Mexico, nearly 7,000 people killed in these wars between these drug cartels. They forced the police chief of Juarez, just across the street from El Paso, across the river, out by threatening to kill a police officer a day until he left, and he left after they killed 4 or 5 people. It just seems worse and worse. Does the administration consider Mexico a national security problem for the United States?
Well, as you know, the first foreign leader that the president met with was the president of Mexico, attended that meeting, and both committed to working to stabilize the border, which is exactly what Janet Napolitano, the head of Homeland Security, said this week in congressional testimony. They want to clearly stop the guns from the United States going south. We want to stop the drugs coming north, and we have a mutual interest in working to secure that border, and that's why the President of the United States had a meeting with President Calderon in his first meeting with a foreign leader, because that border is important to us, and Mexico is a key ally of ours.
All right, we have to stop there. Thank you very much,
Thank you,
Rahm
Bob.
Emanuel, White House Chief of Staff.